So how you feeling? Now that we got that out.
Feel pretty good. You know,
You're in New York. You came in from Detroit, Alex's favorite city. And what do you like about Detroit so much, by the way?
I think outside of New York and the nice weather in LA, Detroit's the coolest city. There's not a lot of cities in America, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, that have something like unique about them. Like every city, in order to be its own thing, has to have its thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's New York's thing? You can name like 5.
Rats.
Pizza.
Oh, sure.
Cool. Rats. LA, right? It's like
Rats.
rats. So pretty much every city is rats. Detroit's rats are much nicer.
No, Detroit's, you know.
Detroit is
awesome.
For me, it's the first time I heard about Detroit was in my elementary school civics class, and it did not sound good.
Yeah,
like, that
it
was
doesn't.
like
That's true.
Textbook, like it's just like the history lesson of what happens, right?
Right.
And it's like I remember when I ended up in Detroit, it was a very like I didn't know what to expect from the city, but I mean like now over a decade.
And it's really come back a lot.
It's
right?
incredible.
I mean, you have an interesting story. I mean, because you grew up in Spain, right?
Yeah.
And then you ended up in Detroit.
Yeah.
And so you really did get a crash course in not just America, but Detroit.
Yeah. So that story is, I guess it's quite random in the sense that I'll say like my half of the mom's side of the family is all sort of Midwest Minnesota, Northern Michigander, like kind of second generation Finlanders. They all settled in that area, and my dad's side of Spanish is pure Iberian Spanish. And the random story there is that they met in Australia. So there's a whole thing.
There's a whole backstory.
Yeah, whole
there,
backstory there. But long story short is came over to the States when I was born and raised in Spain. Came over to the States when I was 11 years old. And actually, Michigan is where we settled, and that was called the growing up in the sort of upper peninsula of Michigan in the Great Lakes region, and then really for me, like in terms of my career, I guess where you kind of kick it off is I went to a small engineering school, Michigan Tech, which is located up there, and I would say there was 2 parts to my education. One was formal through the university. The second part of it was totally unplanned for, but it was my time at Handshake. So nowadays Handshake is called a unicorn.
Applications, no? Like college applications?
Yeah, so it's basically the LinkedIn for college students. I mean, they've taken over the entire career college student to career.
I've hired people through that platform.
Is that
right?
right?
Yeah.
So nowadays, I mean, they're a unicorn, right? But at that time, it was very much a dorm room founded startup. It's the 3 founders, myself in a dorm room. And it was just like, I'm just a third-year student.
At Handshake.
At Handshake.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
So there was just being on the sidelines and just seeing how this thing is coming together.
What were you helping them build at the time?
It was everything, everything, right? So we were just, it's a small team, and we're just trying to get this thing to market.
This is literally just as the product was forming.
As the product is forming,
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Handshake teams up with colleges and helps get their basically if you want to hire someone out of certain colleges, you have to use a Handshake platform that the college teams up with.
That's exactly it. I mean, their primary, the primary target was the career services at university centers, like the career services center that aided students in kind of that matchmaking process. And so at the time, you basically had these pretty archaic systems in place, these job application sort of systems in the universities. And so what Handshake did was, one, they built really great technology and software, which just totally replaced this archaic system. The second is they actually created connectivity between the colleges and the employees across the entire country. So it was like, it really had really strong network effects. And so that was, just to see that business come together and expand really quickly, that was, again, I couldn't have asked for a better hands-on experience of just seeing how that came to fruition.
So that was your taste of the startup sort of thing.
Yeah, I would say I've always done growing up. I was always very I was doing projects, you know, entrepreneur, like I put myself through college, like doing video projects and stuff like that. But like that was, I would say, like capstone of like, if I could have asked for any experience just to be involved in, that would have been it, right? And that's where the bug really bit me.
Nice.
If you're managing debt in commercial real estate, it's worth checking out Lev. Lev's the AI platform for commercial real estate. Lev gives you one place to find lenders, launch deals, and keep track of responses without jumping between emails, spreadsheets, and CRMs. You can see everything that's happening with a deal across your team, all in one dashboard. Get the benefits of AI automation without the headache of building agents yourself. It's fast to set up and easy to use, and it's effective. Lev users are launching over $3 billion in deals every month, and they are loving the results. Visit lev.com to try it out.
So where did that take you? Where'd you go post Handshake?
Yeah, so I would say the inflection point with Handshake was, I'm, again, sort of towards the tail end of graduating, I'm asking myself, I'm literally saying, I actually may not graduate from college. And that's because, like, you know, companies going to raise, you know, capital, we're going to move out to the Valley. And for me, that became a non-negotiable. Like, it actually was this monologue I had with myself of saying, like, I'll be the first member of my family to graduate, and so I need to commit to doing that. It was just like, from day one, like, I just needed to go do that. And so, yeah, kind of had that conversation, founders, and that's where I said, okay, I'm going my own journey, and I'm going to do this. So we, you know, keep in touch with the founders, all in good terms. But my journey, sort of from there, like, graduated, did the responsible thing, got my first corporate gig out of college, which is actually what took me to Detroit. And I did, there's a consulting gig with a firm out in the area, and it was just ERP systems implementations, like working with everything from pharmaceutical companies to financial services. So it was like very technical work. So I just got right into like big sort of corporate work. 3+ years of that, like in the back of my mind, I was like, you know, what's next? Like, you know, there's the feeling of like, I want to build something, right? And I always attribute it to serendipity in the sense of in that space, I met my co-founder. So I met him through a client that I was managing at the time. And Michael Giese, again, he's the story of InvestNext starts with him, really.
So I imagine, like, it's one of those things where, I mean, he's not really into real estate, doesn't really necessarily want to be in real estate. His family's in real estate. He's seeing how things are being run very inefficiently and has that sort of tech mindset. And he's like, well, shit, he found the need for that. I can make this better.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a bit of the hubris of, like, seeing the back office being run on like command line software on Windows 95, and so in 3 months I can build something that'll just be better.
For anyone who's listening, tell them what InvestNext is, and what the platform does.
So InvestNext is an investment management platform specifically geared for real estate, and we work with everything from syndications that are raising capital from smaller networks of investors all the way through, again, funds that are raising across, again, billions across either institutional LPs, individual high net worth investors. But we manage the entire life cycle of that. So from the moment you're raising your first dollar to the moment you're running your sets of distributions out to the entire LP base. And so what started as solving sort of the entire infrastructure problem in the back office has really evolved into creating better access to capital, right? And that's just by virtue of the underlying, not just the technology that's streamlining that process, but also the connectivity that we've built on the platform with, again, our mutual clients and across the entire ecosystem.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? So, like, what are you guys facilitating on the platform that helps people either raise money? And because when I think about the platform, I think about the reporting capabilities, managing your distributions, right? Like your transparency with your investors. But what else does InvestNext do?
Yeah, so I mean, that's the foundation. Those are the foundational pieces, right? And that's where the trust is built with your investors and the LPs. But beyond that it's actually facilitating the entire transaction. So we often talk about the technology in this space. It's about, hey, I'm doing a deal or I'm going to market with an offering, and more often than not, you're not completing that entire transaction in one place, right? You're stepping out, you're it's pretty bespoke. And so what we've done in effect is standardize the entire way that the transaction happens, from subscription to funding. That's all happening all on InvestNext. So that's kind of foundational to what we built. The second layer of this is frankly a paradigm that the market is now starting to really understand, which is when you think about the degree of separation of networks of investors in this ecosystem, it's really small. It's a really small, you're more likely than not, your LPs, your investors, are probably investing across 5, 10, 20 different deals across the same networks of syndicators, fund managers, operators. And so what we've done is actually made that a much better experience for the LPs, in the sense that it's one access point across their ecosystem of investments. And so that starts to streamline.
If their investments are with other sponsors who are using the InvestNext platform, it just makes it easy for them to go to
You're basically
one place.
seeing all of your investments in one place.
That's exactly it, right? So it's just, and again, it's all about, you create a unique brand with each sponsor, which with each GP, but the intent of it is also is create that single access point where they can access all of those deals in one place. So that's just, it's a small detail, but the thing it's a little bit of an interesting tangent, right? But I would say the spark of that idea kind of goes a little bit back to sort of the Handshake days, where we kind of saw a similar problem. It was like this lapse in the connectivity in the networks. It's like, when you talk about like Michael and I coming together on day one, it was like the fusion of kind of two ideas. It's like there's an infrastructure problem, but there's also a network problem.
Well, I mean, listen, I would say, I would say half of our clients, I believe, are using InvestNext. And it makes you wonder, what were people doing beforehand, before there was this technology out there? Because I think a lot of, if you're not a sponsor, or if you're not an LP, or if you're not really in the space, you don't realize kind of how much back end stuff has to get done, right? You find a deal, you want to raise money for the deal. How do you get people to wire money to the deal? How do you get people to subscribe and commit to it? How do you get people to see the package?
Right. It's just very fractured.
It's so fractured. Then once the deal is like in action, and ideally you have some distributions, how are you paying those distributions to your LPs, right? And how are you doing everything to stay in compliance with taxes? Like, these are all things that InvestNext does, right?
Yep.
So. Yeah. Well, I just don't know what people did beforehand, but
I would say, like, Excel is what was called the $23.5 trillion real estate capital. It mainly, even to this day, it's largely managed on Excel. Like that's
sure.
And it's a hodgepodge, to your exact point, right? It's a hodgepodge of either software, spreadsheets, and like third-party services. And so what you've basically seen the industry, call it the real estate capital market industry, broken up to is basically two segments. One is just services based, right? Like you're working with accountants, fund admins, et cetera, right? And so like you're relying on these pieces to come together, to your point, at any stage of this life cycle. And the second is just vertical software. And that none of those have ever connected the dots, right? It's just been like, to your point, like, okay, well, I need to go and buy this piece of software to like help me in this stage of the investment life cycle. But there's none of that is actually connecting the dots with the actual capital that's being flowing in and out of this ecosystem. So that was a super interesting problem for us to address.
Yeah.
Marketing is an essential part of landing financing, but creating lender-ready materials can be time-consuming and hold up deals. Stop spending so much time building deal books with Lev Memo. Lev Memo uses AI to create clean, lender-ready deal documents based on the information you already have. You can generate a memo in minutes and send it out right away as a PDF or virtual deal room. No copy-pasting or formatting required. And now, for the first time ever, Lev Memo is available as a standalone tool, so you can use it without being a full Lev platform user. Plus, it has added capability to support investment sales teams. Learn more at lev.com/memo. That's lev.com/memo.
Well, kind of on another note, I'm curious, because of your position and where you are in the market, you must see all sorts of different types of sponsors from all over the place. Tell us kind of what, in your mind, makes a good sponsor different from a bad sponsor? And if you have any sort of war stories of things you've seen, good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. I mean, it's shocking to me. It is down to what you might say the simple things, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like building trust, being transparent, and like those things carry through, right? And so it, at this point, I mean, we've transacted over 20 billion in capital across thousands and thousands of funds, syndications, right? And you start to, I'd say over the last decade, we've now started to see some pretty interesting patterns of, well, first of all, one is market conditions. Like when things are frothy, like anything and everything kind of like makes it to the surface, right? I think we're, and this is more of like a maybe macro, and I'm not going to position myself as like a macro expert, but it is like a macro answer to a bit of that question, which is like, the more challenging environments have produced a bit more discipline in the space. So that has come to light. I think that has brought to light the things that did not work, just even a few years back, are just not sustainable. And so again, it's just back to the things we've seen work really well is just it's just down to the basics, like clear, transparent communication with investors, whether things are good, whether they're bad, like that's all going through. And then the rest follows, right? And I think, we look at ourselves as founders, and as operators, we've raised outside capital, we've scaled the company. Right. And it's like, those are basic principles for us as well, right? When we're talking to our partners and our investors. And so that's, like, there's no secret sauce there of like that level of transparency. And that's all enabled to how you operate, right? Whether it's the technology you have or the team that you've onboarded, right? But that's, yeah.
Do you guys think that your platform eventually goes beyond real estate? Do you have non-real estate sponsors that you're testing this with? We
do. It's a natural bleeding into other spaces. We've seen sponsors doing other types of venture, private equity and whatnot. The door isn't closed there at all, but we just think there's so much white space in specifically the real estate core asset that for us, even for the next however long, like that is our core focus as a company.
Got it.
And I think it's just it is a shift in the overall. When you think about PropTech, when you think about this entire space, I think it is kind of this last frontier where the technology is really catching up at this point, right? And we're like one piece of that. If you're talking about like the actual ground level operations of the actual assets, like there's stuff that's.
Do you think that's an opportunity for you guys to add another vertical?
So like the answer is like not really like now. I think the real opportunity there is partnership. It's connectivity to these pieces of technology and software, right? Because there is like, I think what is happening is that there's so much specialization happening at every sort of level of, call it the asset management, that I think that when you start to build an ecosystem of integratability, like you can actually create, like people can focus on what they do best. And so we see like as a company, vertical integration sounds great, right? But that's also a dilution of like core competency.
100%.
Right? So for us, if we're really good at the capital markets side of things, we can then partner with the people that are really good at the asset level management, everything beyond that point, right?
Yeah.
That's where the connectivity and integration comes in.
Have you guys ever thought, I'm just like kind of just thinking, you have different sort of capital aggregators out there.
Yep.
And because of the space that you're in, you're seeing so much deal flow, and there are already so many LPs that are subscribed to your platform with their sponsorship partners. Did you guys ever think about some sort of capital aggregation fund sort of model at all, or no?
So the way we've thought about capital aggregation has been through the network of stakeholders on the platform, right? And that's kind of on one side of things is we don't want to be call it the broker or dealer per se, right? And be sort of the only conduit of, call it, deals or opportunities. Right. We actually think that the technology can do a lot of that for the ecosystem as a whole, right? So one example I'll give is in the early days, we built out this concept called co-sponsors or co-GPs, and so that was pretty new in the industry at the time. It was like just saying like, hey, like I have relationships that can raise capital through their direct networks, and they're going to marry right into the deal. Like it's all going to be tracked. That has naturally evolved into even working within the registered investment advisor space, right? Or broker, like actually enabling broker dealers on our platform to be sort of the.
How did that work? Is it that somebody who, let's say I've got the deal and Jack has the money, we could find each other on the platform? Like how did that work?
Yeah, can you find deals on the platform,
or can you find other sponsors?
Yeah. So you can. Today, what we're doing is it is very much sort of like very direct introduction. We're not creating kind of like a matchmaking type thing. So the way it's worked, it's kind of.
Why not? By the way, just out of curiosity, why not?
Why not? It's just we're not there yet, right? Yeah. It's like that's kind of a next phase, and the way, but the way it sort of worked has been. Think of like even the early days of social media. It's like, hey, like I'm inviting you because I just know you, right? So like I have a deal here. Let me go send you an invite. Yeah. And let's work together. Right. So that we haven't had to create this sort of, splash page, like go find your, partner. It's actually the networks have facilitated that. Now there's a point in time where we think, okay, there's an opportunity to create a bit even more aggregation as again, we're scaling volume, right? But in itself, the networks have done that already for us. And
when you say the networks have done that, you're saying if we had a deal listed on InvestNext, you're saying naturally or organically we found other sponsors because we know that they use InvestNext, or just word of mouth got around. Like
a lot of that again in the early days is very much word of mouth. It's got it. And again, I think the unfair advantage of us operating in this space is real estate operators and GPs. I mean, it's a pretty small world compared to other industries, right? And so the networks and degrees of separation are pretty small. So we've been able, at least from the early days of how we scaled InvestNext, that's been a huge thing for us. It's just the fact that it is a very connected space as compared to, again, other industries.
The news is important, but if you're a busy real estate professional like me, you don't have time to skim through dozens of dry and ad-filled media outlets each day. That's why I read the CRE Daily. It's a free email newsletter that cuts through the clutter and delivers concise, witty commentary on the latest trends and transactions in commercial real estate. If you're a commercial real estate professional, you owe it to yourself to try it out and stay on top of what's happening in the industry. It's only 5 minutes a day. Visit credaily.com to sign up for free.
So. Yeah, that makes sense. So you guys have been building this product now, call it 8 years, going on 9. What evolutions has it had? When you look back to your original business plan, have you guys pivoted a lot, or is it still fairly the same thing and just grown in experience? What do you think?
Yeah, so I would say our mission hasn't changed at all. And as a company, we're thinking about how we democratize access to this space. That has always been that has been the guiding sort of light, right? And of course, there's pivots that happen in between, sort of as you're progressing. But I mean, for us, back to my original point, is like real estate is the core asset for us, and I think that's a combination of a little bit of how we got started as a company, where treated as like perfect time, perfect place. Of we're 3 founders, we're in Detroit. Again, 2017, 2018, but the city is coming back, and a lot of this has to do with localized capital placement into deals literally right outside our window. And so we're seeing, at least as the creators of the thing, we're seeing how we're actually facilitating one part of that.
Cool. Yeah.
So it's like very visceral and like real, right? And so that's where we fell in love with the asset classes, like the built world, like this thing where people live and work, like this deserves a lot of attention, right? And so in terms of like on day one, we were solving and we're still solving the very like mechanical problems of raising capital, managing investors, and communicating asset performance and all that. But what that evolved into, again, in addition to creating connectivity of these capital networks, it's also just reducing the abstraction of this asset class. It's just to say that you start to see broader and broader networks of investors investing in deals that are like right down their street. Mm-hmm. Like there's obviously financial returns to this thing, but it's also just like an intangible thing that they're actually like bought into, right, as investors. And so that vision is like, in terms of how we're evolving it over time, is we actually do end up seeing a lot more, call it decentralization of that capital, and like really focused on, again, whether it's core assets or areas that the investors are.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this: where do you, just because you guys are so in the mix of, I kind of hate this term, Proptech, but I think it's gotten some
overuse.
It's not that it's overused. I get the need to classify technology that works for real estate. Yeah. That's great, but it's so broad, and I think it's had some very early like failures from big companies that, you know, you could be a platform that takes pictures of a space for you to list it online, and that's the same thing as your platform. That's the same thing as a construction.
It's all Proptech.
It's all Proptech. Yeah. So, what's kind of your macro view on the Proptech environment right now? Investment capital into the space. You know, you guys are fundraising and have closed. I'm sure you guys are going to be raising again. Yeah. What's the space look like today?
So I alluded to this earlier. I think, again, maybe a biased answer, right? But I think it's the most exciting space out there. Like, to me, it feels like, again, like I said, the like final frontier of like where technology can still make a massive impact, right? And it's just down to, I'm interacting with founders that are building literally like everything from, again, even the next generation of property management to like the actual infrastructure of the bricks and the piping and everything that's actually informing what's happening in the asset. So like, I think there's a lot that's happening there. And again, you can throw in the very easy buzzword of like AI, like, but it like it's very real, right? So anyways, like I'd say like very bullish on that space. What I would say in terms of investment, I think with across the board, like it's been challenging. Like I would say for that space in general, just because of the macro conditions, right? It's just you get your
capital
cycles.
Slowed down a little bit.
Capital slows down, right? So like if you're an outside investor, you're like, I think you don't have that context. You're saying, well, you know, real estate's, you know, not as fast as it used to be. Like and so like I think that can have a bit of like it's a misconception of like the potential innovation that can happen in this space. For us, like we raised capital probably on the worst time ever, right? But for us as operators, like that never mattered. Like for us, you know, we operated to profitability. It was all very, like, just looked at our balance sheet, and that was a proof point. Like we're a scaling company. Like we have optionality, right?
Yeah.
What I'll say there is that, and maybe this is like a biased point of view from my perspective of maybe the networks of founders that I've interacted with in this space, but I think like they're really solid operators. I mean, they're, in terms of just how they think of building a business, at least I would say like there's a new cohort of operators and founders that I think are a lot more prudent, or thinking about like, hey, how does this thing actually scale, and how do we create optionality as a company? Because I think the days are gone of, hey, like we're just going to raise tons of dollars and, you know, kind
what
of
else have you seen that's exciting in the Proptech space then? Like what gets you outside of your platform, obviously? What gets you excited or hopeful or optimistic?
What I would say the data game, right? Like I think there are a number of companies we've seen where they're, again, AI is a core strategy, right? Like, hey, like we have all this information, like how do we now start to make this information useful and make actual, you know, good decisions from this, right? I just alluded to it, but I think companies that are building infrastructure that's all around the connectivity of all the systems in an actual building. I think that's super interesting for me. Like as a peripheral kind of lens, I think that actually that's kind of the last layer of
like iOS basically.
iOS,
Okay.
right? So you start to create that layer of information about how this actual asset is creating, it's actually working. Now you start to connect it with the actual financials. And I think that just starts to create a very real, tangible understanding of like what is this, the value of this thing, and how is it evolving. But I think that for me, like that's at least from what I've seen in the sidelines, that's super interesting to me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
That's a cool frontier.
Do you see capital coming back from the sidelines a little bit when it comes to just sort of this startup Proptech space?
For sure. I
Yeah.
mean, there's always, we're always, again, two things that, to that question is,
And when I say
capital-wise-
obviously it's always going to be there, but I mean, do you see it right now? How does the market look? Is it happening right as we speak?
Yeah, I think the statement of we were speaking earlier, right? But I think the statement of like the damage has been done and the pain is being felt. I think like I'm optimistic. I think the worst has happened. I think now it's as we're shifting, right? Talk about going into a new year. Like I think there's going to be a lot more activity there, and that's again, I'm talking from the venture side of things. I speak to investors all the time where like they're really bullish on the space. They know there's it. We're talking about like around the corner of like where the industry is going. I think there's a really strong sentiment of make the investments now, because like when that activity really picks up, like you're prepared to go and execute.
No, that's what we see
right?
too, and it's interesting from your perspective. You kind of see that or feel that as well.
For sure. I mean, again, people always reference, interest rate environments and like, well, like these are all signals, right? But I go back to the earlier question you asked, which is, like what are the good operators doing? And like they're figuring it out. I mean, they're entrepreneurs. They're getting up in the morning. They're building trust with investors, and they're doing deals, right? And like these are the times where this stuff happens, right? Like when it's not easy, that's where you really stick out as a GP and as a sponsor, and like that's where we've seen, and like those are the best clients.
Yeah, as we're wrapping up, why don't you tell us what's next for InvestNext? What are you guys focused on for the next?
What's next for
InvestNext? What's your next 1, 3, 5 years? However, I know that no entrepreneur looks 5 years out. That's all a dream. But what's the next year or two look like for you guys?
Yeah, I've already kind of touched on this, but if there's one thing, it is access to capital, right? That's a real meaningful sort of mantra that's in line with our mission, right? And part of that it's two things. One, the world is screaming that right now. Like there's more movement towards retail capital, more investors are getting involved. We're seeing regulation. We just saw regulation pass the House on actually opening up accreditation status to a much broader stream of investors, right? Like there's stuff that we need to do that needs to incur responsibility in this space, but all the signals are saying like broader participation. And so like for us, again, totally aligned with our mission to democratize real estate investing. It's also the thing of what's next for us is building the technology to facilitate that, right? And we just talked about like networks of capital, creating access within our ecosystem, which we've been doing now for quite a while. And so that's just validating to us that the work we've done, nearly a decade now, like it's proving out, right? So that I would say that's next for us is like creating even greater connectivity there.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
That's great.
Makes sense.
Well, man, it was great to have you on. Thanks for making the trip from what I officially stamp as the coolest city outside of New York and LA. Don't take that how it is.
What about Dallas?
But I'm biased myself.
I mean, I'm biased.
Dallas? No, yeah. Yes, in Dallas. Come on. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. And InvestNext is
Jen, just cut that part about Dallas out.
InvestNext is a great platform. Everyone should check it out, obviously.
It's very cool. You guys are building, and we're excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It was awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks.